Hey, good morning, everybody. I hope you had a great Labor Day and enjoyed some well-deserved rest and well-deserved time off. We live in a beautiful and blessed nation. I know it's hard to remember right now, but I hope you did have some time off to give thanks to God and to recognize all He has given you, and that even in the midst of bad, things are really good, and we do live in a blessed and safe and prosperous time. And as crazy as things are now, they will get better. I believe that. Anyway, this week we're going to do something a little different. I have my first Army drill this week since getting back from deployment, and I'm going to be gone this Thursday through Saturday for duty. So rather than doing the normal series, Wednesday conversation, the whole 9 yards, what I'm going to do is do a mini survey preview today and tomorrow. So I'm going to cover the sermon I'm preaching this coming Sunday. I'm going to kind of do a preview today and tomorrow. Now, the passage we're looking at this weekend is Matthew chapter 5, verses 37, or excuse me, Matthew chapter 5, verses 33 to 37. So Matthew chapter 5, verse 33 to 37. And just to bring you up to speed, if you haven't been there on Sundays, we're going through a sermon series called Costly Discipleship, and we're really studying the Sermon on the Mount. We're also using the Christian author Dietrich Bonhoeffer and some of his quotes from his book called The Cost of Discipleship. So the sermon series is Costly Discipleship, looking at the Sermon on the Mount, and we're looking in particular at some of Bonhoeffer's words on those particular passages. So we've been going through those, and this week we're going to cover Matthew chapter 5, verses 33 to 37. I put that up on the screen for you. There we go. And I'm going to keep it up for the rest of this discussion this morning. Anyways, this is Jesus speaking in the Sermon on the Mount, and he says, "Again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn." Let me take time out here. As we've been going through these passages, Jesus has this pattern where he says, "You've heard it said, you've heard it said, you've heard it said." And he's referring to the Ten Commandments and the different teachings on law throughout the Torah, as well as the Mishnah, which is the rabbinic explanation of the law. And then he adds in verse 34, he does this throughout these passages, "But I say to you." And Jesus has the authority to say that because as God in the flesh, he is not just the author and giver of life, but the author and giver of the law. And so he has the authority and the standing to explain what's really meant. So he says, "But I say to you, do not take an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not take an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Let what you say simply be yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil." So it's Matthew chapter 5, verses 33 to 37. Now this is an interesting passage because it raises the debate of taking oaths. I'm going to talk about that a little bit on Sunday, so I'm not going to cover it right now, but that passage on whether or not, or that debate on whether or not we should take oaths is an interesting one. What I do want to ask today is this, and you can see it in the subtitle underneath my name. When is it okay to lie? When is it okay to lie? The obvious answer, and I guess I could end the message here, is to say never. It's never okay to lie. However, our own actions convict us on that point. We lie to protect ourselves, to rationalize, to excuse ourselves for personal gain, and more. Let me say it a different way. We know it's wrong. We know it's wrong, and yet we do it anyways. We know we shouldn't lie, but we do it anyways. The Apostle Paul talked about this and wrestled with this, not necessarily lying, but sin in general, in Romans chapter 7. Near the end, he talked about wanting to do what is right, but not doing it, and wanting to avoid what is wrong, but doing it anyway. Can you relate? I know I can. I would be lying if I told you I never lied. You'd be lying if you said the same thing. I'm not saying you lie all the time. I'm not saying I lie all the time, or that we're defined by lying. But every one of us at some point has told a lie, and every one of us, even if we bend the truth a little bit, okay, I want to go 77 and a 70. Well, I mean, you are, I guess you're not really lying, but you're kind of getting close to it. So anyways, the point is, we've all fallen short of that. So let's get that piece out of the way. Every one of us by our actions, every single one of us by our actions condemns ourselves. Every one of us has fallen short. It's only by the grace of God that we can be and are forgiven and transformed. So now it's from that place recognizing our sin and our humanity, that we can first ask for forgiveness and second ask, okay, what should I do with this passage? How am I to understand these words? How am I to live this out? How am I, as a Christian, to move forward with this proclamation that I should let my yes be yes, my no be no's, and anything else beyond that comes from an evil place? Well, the call is for us to strive for truth. Let your yes be yes. Let your no be no. As a Christian, you should seek to be such a trustworthy person that when you say yes, people believe it. And when you say no, people believe it. And again, that's a piece we're going to unpack a little more on Sunday. But I still really haven't answered the original question. I've danced around it, but I haven't answered the original question. When is it okay to lie? As I said earlier, the obvious answer would be never. It's never okay to lie. But aren't there exceptions? We might ask, for example, what about a German hiding a Jewish neighbor from the SS in World War II? I can't think of a pastor or philosopher or ethics teacher that would say you shouldn't do that. I know there are exceptions, but the reality is most people would say, well, yes, in that case, you should lie to protect the person from death. To do wrong, to prevent greater wrong, would maybe be the answer, I suppose. One could argue that a lie to prevent a greater sin or tragedy would be okay. And yet, I still think this misses the point. You see, the very fact that the world presents us with such awful choices shows this is a fallen world. The choice there is awful, right? I mean, turn them in, which is an awful choice, to their certain death or persecution, or you lie and put your family and yourself at risk. We all hope we'd be the one who would protect the vulnerable person, but our weakness and our humanity bring into question. If we're just being honest with ourselves, not lying, I don't know if I would. I would hope that under pressure I would do the right thing, but under pressure, would I? I wouldn't know until I'm put in that position. So the point we're missing is if we strive to let our yes be yes and our no be no, and share that contagious spirit with others, there wouldn't be a need to ever asking that question. Let me back it up a little bit. And I know I'm talking about utopia. I'm not really talking about what's possible this side of heaven. But weren't the people in question, that German family protecting the Jewish family from the SS, weren't they in that predicament at some level because at some point their yes hadn't been yes or no hadn't been no? They'd gone along with anti-Semitic language and thoughts and deeds. There was a point at which the German Lutheran Church passed the Arian paragraph saying that all pastors had to be of Aryan descent, and there were pastors that didn't speak up at that point. They were not intellectually or theologically honest. And so their deceit to protect themselves, to protect their career, to protect their social standing, allowed them then to be in a place where now they're being forced to either put their life or the life of the Jewish family in question. So the point is, if we let our yes be yes and our no be no, we have a much better chance of getting to the point, of not getting to the point where we're ever going to be forced to ask those questions. So, will that happen inside of heaven? No. But that doesn't mean, as Christians, we can't strive to live that way ourselves. To live with such truth and such transparency and such honesty and authenticity that our yes is yes and no is no. And that's hard to do. That's why it's costly discipleship. It gives you something to think about today. Tomorrow I'm going to unpack the sermon a little bit more ahead of our sermon on Sunday. And remember, we worship every Sunday at 10 o'clock. We meet in the small gym at FBC High School. We're also here on Facebook Live at 10 o'clock on Sundays. You can watch the sermon later on if you miss it on our Facebook page or on YouTube. Just search up Beachside Media and you should find us there. Anyway, you guys have a great day. Have a great Tuesday. Enjoy getting back to work or getting back to whatever you're doing. And God bless you. Take care.